Welcome to Speechless. We're live from SPNN in St. Paul, Minnesota, just about 3 blocks away from where another approximately 260 babies were ripped apart from their mother's womb. And of course, that's Planned Parenthood. Just an update, elections, and this is going to be a show about elections that happened in Minnesota and locally, specifically in regard to this jihad that took place in Minnesota. But as far as pro-life goes, I want you to know that there are certain states that are getting their acts together, and one was West Virginia and also Alabama. They passed resolutions defining in their constitution that nowhere in their constitution is abortion allowed, or that other people have to pay for it. So there's a big wins that passed in those states. Not so much in Minnesota here, as again, you will be having to pay for abortions in Minnesota, and especially with the House turning over to the Democrats and the governorships retaining control in the governorship's hands. You'll still be paying for abortions, and our Constitution will allow for abortions. So, according to whoever thinks about what, the courts or whoever. So, I have my guest on here, Bob Carrillo from Third Rail Talk. You were on a couple weeks ago.
I was.
You showed up as a surprise.
I dodged a bullet, literally.
So we're going to get some updates on that.
Getting pretty exciting out there.
But
almost got myself arrested for
again
walking. No, that was back then.
Yeah,
for walking into a church,
into a public meeting.
Well, yeah,
where you were invited.
I was invited. Had tickets. I was actually shocked to see that kind of behavior on the part of people connected with a Christian church. That's number one. I was also, surprised by the accusation that by the way, a bogus accusation that I was under investigation. I have a copy of the police report, which totally exonerates me and the other people.
Well, there was no investigation.
No, of course not. I've checked with every agency under the sun. I am just about to see if I can arrange for a time to visit with the new head of the FBI Minnesota division, just to talk about a couple of things. One, a presentation that was just hosted in Apple Valley about hate speech, hate crime, and all that stuff, but that's for a different day.
Right.
But anyway, last time we were here, I stopped by after I escaped from St. Paul, not unlike the movie Escape from New York, where we were there to observe, we were there to film, and record a presentation. And instead of being welcomed, we were booted out. Me in particular. I was thrown out by security as well as St. Paul Police Department, but they were great. St. Paul PD, outstanding. They did their job. So there you have it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm excited just to be here.
Okay.
Without shackles.
Right. Well, speaking of shackles, I'm going to talk about the judicial elections here a little bit and the outcome of those. And of course, Michelle McDonald, who is very familiar with shackles, representing a client in the courtroom, gets arrested and then has to represent her client in shackles. And there's a federal case on that.
You really can't make this stuff up anymore.
No, it's just bizarre to say the least. Well, she was running for the Minnesota Supreme Court. Now this is her third run, and she was running against Margaret Chudich, and Michelle got 44% of the vote.
Really?
Even out the whole attempt to try to discredit her and to saying she's got legal problems and just won't be a good justice. She's out there in the press quite a bit. So the first time she got 47, the last time was, I think, about 43, this time 44%. So in my mind, a good showing in light of the other person getting the word incumbent behind their name. but also with that, then you look at the other people who ran for justice or judge, appellate court judge or district court judges, and she had the highest percentage vote.
At some point, the worm will turn. At some point, I think Minnesotans will finally get it. I hope it's not too late. At that point, I hope it's reversible. Many of the things that are being done to Minnesotans, and because we have such an incurious and incompetent media, most people really have no idea what's going on. And it's too bad. I mean, they think everything's just like it was when Hubert Humphrey was alive, or even Paul Wellstone when he was alive. It isn't that Minnesota any longer.
Right.
Most of us went to bed.
Oh, and most people don't know that yet.
No, they don't. But most people went to bed on Monday night expecting the election to occur Tuesday, and it was Minnesota. When we woke up on Wednesday, it was Minnesota-Stan. And I can't, I mean, you've got to call the ball at some point. That's what happened. It was a clean sweep. That waltzed into the governor's seat, and he's essentially on the take in that regard. He's part of the problem, not the solution. Ellison, in spite of all the insane connections to radical Islamists going back many years, being a defender of cop killers, Sarah Jane Olson,
his ties to the Muslim
his ties
Brotherhood,
to the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE, the nation
terrorist
of,
organizations,
unbelievable, the Nation of Islam, and crazy Louis Farrakhan, who last weekend made a speech in Iran, calling the United States again the great Satan. The man should have been arrested at the airport when he came back. These are forgetting about the 2 domestic abuse allegations, and I understand from someone I spoke to yesterday, there may be a 3rd woman also. But to me,
and they're not even mentioning his ex-wife as a person being abused.
Well,
the one that had to watch all these other relationships go on while
absolutely
she was married to him.
Well, some marriage. But on the other hand, his concept of marriage fits nicely into his adopted, because he was born and raised Roman Catholic in the Dearborn, Michigan area, and he converted to Islam and communism at about the same time in his life. So his adopted culture embraces this kind of behavior in terms of the treatment of women.
And it would be interesting to see what book he swears an oath to the Constitution on. Is he going to use the Thomas Jefferson Quran, which Thomas Jefferson bought or got because
he wanted to understand his enemy.
Understand the enemies.
Barbary pirates, all that stuff.
We were at war. 25, as Phil Haney said last week, 25% of our budget was going to fight that war.
So good old Tom flipped the pages and said, I think I will understand my enemy if I read their book. That's all. This isn't about him.
And he did understand it, and he fought back. And we sent the Marines out to Tripoli.
And for those people that remember the Marine Corps hymn, they kind of mention it, if you know what I mean.
So subtle.
Not so
well,
subtle.
Well, so history not being taught in their schools.
Of course not. Of course not. And I got a full dose of that last Friday evening at St. Cloud State University, and I couldn't resist. I had to go to this presentation by Jaylani Hussein, the Minnesota Director for CARE, in conjunction with a Dr. Linda Gordon, who wrote a book entitled The Second Coming of the KKK, and the connection with Islamophobia. That was the most insane presentation I've witnessed in years. And folks, I got to show you this. Here's the cover. If this, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's absurd.
Are they saying?
Yes.
Was she saying that the Muslims are the KKK?
No, we are.
Well, wait a second.
That would be-
Muslims are at war with Jewish people.
No. You and me, as Protestants, as Christians, as Catholics, we're the enemy. We are the new KKK. According to Dr. Linda Gordon and Jaylani Hussein, the Minnesota Care Director, and she went on to, she's a historian, don't you know? Just ask her. And she babbled on and kept banging the mic, which is totally irritating. But that aside, she went on and on about how the KKK, their chief objective was to, in opposition to Catholics and Jews. She completely avoided the topic of the KKK way back then and what they did to the black community in this country and what they were really all about. This is real. This is actually, this is actually the brochure cover for this insane presentation. Yeah. And I'll tell you how confident they are that what they're saying is true. They refuse to allow anyone, this is a public university, they refuse to allow anyone to videotape or audio tape this presentation. The one good piece of news is, as opposed to the ousting of me.
Well, who paid for this? It was at St. Cloud State University in one of their buildings.
It was sponsored by the Muslim Student Association.
That gets money from the government.
Bingo.
You get to film.
And, well, no, according to the very nice security officer in the posting, you know, I know, and she was very nice. But here's the deal. Last time we met, it was because I stopped by after being ousted from a St. John.
A similar event, but at a church.
St. John the Evangelist Episcopal Church. Similar event, same speaker, same presentation about everything is about Islamophobia, don't you know? And they wouldn't allow us to film or to record it. That's why we were booted out. That's why I was accused falsely, Mr. Hussein, falsely, of being under investigation so that the St. Paul PD was forced to escort me out along with a private security.
So he had no problem lying about this?
No, and it's not over between he and I.
Okay.
Because that is a very serious charge and, frankly, an assault on my character, suggesting that I am under investigation for, and by whom, I kept asking, by whom, who's investigating, and for what? And I never got an answer. But anyway, the St. Paul Police Department did a phenomenal job of putting together a great report. Now we fast forward to St. Cloud State University and this insanity, which is all about the KKK and how it's similar to what's going on in terms of Islamophobia.
So they're having these public events to let people know what's going on, but they don't want to let people know what's going on. Well, that kind of what's going on with the judicial races.
No question.
They don't want competition, and they don't want these judges out in public running for office. Well, the courts.
And we don't have a free press. We don't have a press that actually tells the truth and reports the hard news. One of my friends years ago was Dave Moore with WCCO TV. We were good friends. Used to play volleyball with he and his family for years. Dave Moore was probably the Walter Cronkite of Minnesota news. I love the guy. He told the truth in spite of the fact that he was connected with WCCO TV. Okay. But that was
How do you really feel, Bob?
Well, come on. Today you've got Esme Murphy, an apologist for this whole piece of goo. It's not journalism anymore. It's some kind of aberrant, I don't know what it is anymore.
Yeah. It's opinion press, like this show. I'm not.
At least we're telling the truth.
I'm not a journalist.
Well,
I'm not journaling the facts of the events and stuff like that. I mean, you come on, you're doing that.
That's right. And with
I give my opinion.
With Third Rail Talk, the only reason I got drafted back into service is because mainstream media in Minnesota has abandoned the field of responsibility and obligation to tell Minnesotans, and that's what happened to the election, tell Minnesotans the truth about what's really going on. Ilhan Omar, perfect example. This individual has, in PJ Media, thank you, David Steinberg and company, have not only discovered and uncovered all the dirty details about the fact that this person, who's now going to represent Minnesota in Congress to take Keith Ellison's position, this woman married her brother. The proof is irrefutable now.
Just to get him to come
to get him
immigrate
into the country illegally.
Right.
Then she divorced her brother this past December.
after she married somebody else.
Kind of a problem right there. You know what I mean? So she
Well,
divorces
it's
the
intentional
guy.
fraud.
Of course it
you
is.
know.
It's bigamy, it's polygamy, it's immigration fraud.
It's immigration
Of course
fraud.
it is. It's a whole bunch.
I mean-
it's a whole host of problems. And she committed, by doing what she did in the family court system in Minnesota, she committed perjury. PJ Media has uncovered it. They've exposed it. They have school records relative to the young man she married, her brother, and brought him here. And they were all living at one point up in North Dakota at North Dakota State University, or what is it? I can't remember the university. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Point is that
All right.
they were all living together, all three of these people. She's married to her brother, wink, wink, nod, nod, and then she finally divorces the guy this past December, but she
Okay.
married another guy 2 years ago. This is like, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know, third base. But she's guilty. If you funnel this down to a fine-tuned point, she committed immigration fraud. And yet she's on The View today.
Right.
On The View.
And I watched it. Trump's a racist. I mean, that was the whole point. Trump's a racist.
Well,
That's
yeah,
why they had it.
I mean, that's...
They're applauding her, winning as a Muslim woman. Great. I mean,
No, it's not great.
Well,
I disagree.
okay.
I love you. We've known each other for almost 20 years. No, it's not
Yeah.
great.
Well,
it's fraud. This is a sham.
Right.
Okay.
That's a sham.
Yeah.
But how does that sham, to me, the question to me is, how can that even happen?
It's Minnesota.
Well, no, I think it's deeper than that.
help me
me
understand. I'm willing to learn.
Okay, I'm putting together what Phil Haney talked about yesterday,
All right.
or last week, and of course with Ron Bransner on the week before with you,
Yeah.
Agenda 21, the United Nations, putting all this together. They're looking, the United Nations, the foreign entities are looking for people to step up like Ilhan Omar has done, okay? And so they're funding her, they're pushing her, they're promoting her. It would
Along with George Soros.
it
and
would
the whole
not
crowd,
happen
the
otherwise.
globalist crowd. I get it.
It would not happen, and that's why nothing happens here in Minnesota.
Well,
and
Minnesota-
the immigration fraud.
Immigration fraud. It's nothing according to the people here. And now that Keith Ellison has, I hate to use the word trumped, but this is checkmate. He is now the top cop in Minnesota.
Right.
This guy is, in my view, political trash. He has now co-opted the top cop position in Minnesota. He's the Minnesota Attorney General as of January 1. He'll cover it all up. He'll cover up the theft of hundreds of millions of dollars of Minnesota taxpayer money by way of the breach of multiple social services systems programs, which is still going on as we speak. He'll cover up the Ilhan, well, that's federal now. She's out there now. This is federal. And by the way, this is a mugshot.
Is the House of Representatives going to do anything about it?
They better do something about this. Well, Justice needs to do something, the Justice Department.
There you go.
And now that Jeff Sessions is gone and that someone else in authority is going to, someone that's qualified, please make it South Carolina's Trey Gowdy.
Yeah.
Somebody needs
He
to step forward.
appointed, and I don't know if it was temporary, but he appointed one of his chief of staff persons.
And that's fine for the time being.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is we must reestablish.
Rosenstein is off
Oh.
the Russian probe now.
Thank you, Lord. We must reestablish the rule of law, constitutional law, not Sharia law, not make-believe law, but the United States constitutional function of law, the Bill of Rights. We must maintain our country, keep it intact. We cannot allow people who do stand up against this nonsense to be treated this way. These are noteworthy people in the state of Minnesota who have been beaten up by Minnesota Care and Isaiah
A
labeled.
Marxist organization. I've gone to their
Terrible.
meetings.
It's awful.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in a communist country. Sorry. You know, I'm not sorry. I'm joking.
No.
But when you have people like John Hinderacher, Mitch Pearlstein, A.J. Kern, who was featured, by the way, in the presentation last Friday at St. Cloud State University by way of this ridiculous
And
deal. This is insane.
This is propaganda
Of
to
course it
make
is.
them say they hate Muslims. And these people do not hate Muslims one single bit.
Not even a little bit.
I
And all of
don't.
this is about Islamophobia. You know, my grandkids.
I mean, we understand it.
My grandkids have a phobia. They
Okay.
do. Because they were caught up in the Valley Fair or Valley Scare rampage, brawl.
They were there when it happened.
They were there. They were in the park. And this occurred. 100 people, won't mention who. They,
I'll mention.
No, hold on.
Yeah,
No, let's have a little
it's
fun with
fine.
this.
Okay.
Were they a bunch of crazed rabbis? No. Were they a bunch of crazed Catholics or Presbyterians? No. Forgetting about, and I'm just linking this up to the religious
Okay.
context only because they do constantly. It's
Right.
all about Islamophobia, right?
Yeah.
So was it a bunch of, LDS people that did this? No. My grandkids were subjected to a brawl, you talk about a phobia, inside of Valley Fair Park, called Valley Scare because of Halloween. And it was law enforcement appreciation.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So they
Okay.
knew the cops were going to be there with their children. They busted through the turnstiles, they hopped the fence. It took 6 police departments to break it up. 6 PDs. And a police helicopter. And the state troopers. And WCCO, because Dave Moore is no longer there, said it was a minor incident.
100
The
people running through.
Brawls all over the place.
And they were fighting people.
Yes.
They just picked people randomly.
And I cannot talk my
Was there any statement about why they did this, or anybody coming?
No, of course not. Jaylani.
They're not even saying they were provoked. They just
Hey.
decided to go do it.
Tim.
We want to go tonight.
Jaylani Hussein did not step up to the microphone and do a press conference about how awful this was and condemn it, which he should have done. He did not do that. The reason? Because he's an apologist. He is
part of jihad.
He is a trained operative, and he's gotten away with it for years. And he pulled the same stunt at St. Cloud State University last Friday night. And I was sitting front row. The man could not look at me. Reason? Because I represent the truth. I represent a group of people, we were there, telling the truth by just sitting there. And he didn't like it. He was very busy messing with his computer, fooling around with the screens to try, because he knew we were there. For one purpose and one purpose only, to deflect, to play the game. I have to tell
Well,
you, and I
okay.
got back to my grandkids.
Yeah.
I tried to talk to my grandson and ask him, if he would go back to, and I wasn't fooling around with him, I wasn't playing with him or toying with him. I was asking him, would you go back to Valley Fair with me if I came there to protect you? I mean, his dad and his mom, my daughter, they were there, and he said, no, Grandpa, I'm too afraid. He won't go to the Mall of America anymore. He will not go to Valley Fair anymore. He won't go to Screamtown for Halloween. That's real fear. That's a real phobia based upon a real reason, an actual reason to be afraid.
So he saw people getting beat up.
He's only 10 years old.
Well, that's, I mean, for a 10-year-old, they figure it out.
Yes, they do, and they're not stupid. Especially my grandson, he's outstanding. He's very bright, and he just said, no, Grandpa, I'm not going back. That is not acceptable. I don't care whether Waltz is in there pretending to be a governor based upon, compared to the last guy who was barely awake or conscious. That's the word I'm groping for here. Or an attorney general. All of our offices in Minnesota have been co-opted. Secretary of State Steve Simon. Right. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Give me a break. Voter fraud is an art form in Minnesota.
Right.
Then you have a governor who's going to cover it up. You have an attorney general now who's going to cover it all up. And if you or me complain,
hate speech, right?
Hate speech, hate crime. Then we're going to be what? Prosecuted for this?
Yeah.
I'm going to stand my ground. I'm not putting up with this nonsense.
Unless anybody thinks that's an extreme thing, our courts are already doing that. Harassment restraining orders type of thing. So you don't even have to do anything, and if somebody sends you a picture, you're going to get charged with a harassment restraining order.
That's right.
I mean, but you didn't ask for it. You didn't want it.
Look,
they're going to do it. It's happening in Minnesota.
In the words of Rocky Balboa.
And the restraining orders are being given.
In the words of Rocky Balboa, in the middle of the fight with Apollo Creed, he says, I ain't breathing heavy. You know what? I'm not breathing heavy. Mm-hmm. I'm going to square off with this problem. You talk about a phobia. Minnesota, had 13 church burnings since 2012. Officials want help solving them. This is real.
So they don't know the cause.
No, they don't
know
arson. But that's not, there's no phobia attached to that. Mm-hmm. There's no investigation that leads to, gosh, could these people be responsible? This is nonsense.
I want to, before we finish that, I want to get back to that Valley Scare thing, because as you put it, if this was Catholics or some other organization, religious organization going in and doing this.
Imagine, Tim, just for a moment, 100 crazed rabbis, or short little rabbis, little rabbi, wannabe, young adults, hop the fence, bust through the turnstiles, start brawls all over Valley Fair. As a probe, as intentionally creating a problem, what would you say? I mean, give me a break. The Catholics, they're just crazed with knives in their teeth. They're just, they're going after those 30 of them, 30 Catholics. Yep, here we are, police report, MPD. 30 Catholics attack women 3 days in a row at Lake Calhoun. They attack them and they threaten, and it says terroristic threats. They attack them and they threaten to kidnap and rape them. Mm-hmm. Catholics, I'm telling you, all hell would break loose then. Right. But that's not the case, is it?
No. And if that did happen, everybody would say, that is not what Catholicism teaches. That is not what rabbis teach. That is not what God has told, how God has told these people to behave. But
That's
if you
right.
do it with the Muslims,
That's right.
guess what? That is how Muhammad told them how to behave.
Last
This is jihad.
November, 2 people were stabbed in Macy's at the Mall of America. On the same day, same evening, a ride operator, I'm not going to mention who they are, you can guess. A ride operator groped a woman, stuck his hands between her legs while she sat next to her child in one of the former Camp Snoopy, formerly known as Camp Snoopy rides. 5th degree assault. December last year, a woman by the name, 26-year-old woman by the name of Morgan Evenson, stabbed 14 times, not by a Catholic or a Presbyterian or a Lutheran, on the way home from work in the uptown area of Minneapolis. I got to tell you something. This nonsense has got to stop.
But they can't, Catholics, rabbis, they can't do it in the name of God or in the name of Jesus.
They would never do that.
Well, they would, well, priests sexually abuse kids,
I
you know.
understand that,
but my point is, Jesus doesn't tell them to do that.
No.
Jesus says, don't do that.
Bingo.
But
Bingo.
What does Muhammad tell them to do?
You nailed it.
This is okay
They
for
say
them.
it's wrong. Jesus says it's wrong.
Right.
This is wrong. Okay.
Muhammad doesn't say that.
No. He basically says you're obligated to behave this way.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good luck with that. If that's the case, pack your bags, take your resistance to assimilation to becoming an American under U.S. constitutional law, and get your butt on a plane and a boat and go back. Go back where that's okay. It's not okay here. The problem with this election is that the people involved here now in authority, because this was almost a clean sweep in terms of an election process.
And it would have been if the Senate was up in Minnesota Senate was up.
Bingo.
We would have lost
But the
the Senate
people
seats.
here are going to run cover for this kind of behavior. And if you or me or anybody else out there complains, we will be charged. We
Yep.
will be prosecuted for
Hate speech.
hate speech and Islamophobia. Let's see
Which-
now.
but-
let me
yeah.
let me go through the labels here. You know, you gotta get them all down. Hater, Islamophobic, or yeah, that's me. Bigot, racist. Ilhan Omar was busy doing that today on
Right.
on
Trump's
The
a
View.
racist. Yeah.
Trump's a racist. Therefore, I'm a racist.
Well, here's
Come on.
well, what's happened here with Keith Ellison winning is another step of jihad has happened in Minnesota and America.
That's right.
An attorney general
That's
for a
right.
state.
Yeah.
That's jihad. That's winning over the country for Muslim. What does that do? It says to the Muslim people, God is with us. God is blessing us.
And elections have consequences,
And
Tim.
so therefore,
Yep, that's right.
Minnesota's a friendly state for us.
Yeah.
Let's go there. So
That's-
Minnesota's going to be
Oh.
piled on.
People here have no idea what's coming. The stampede relative to the continuation of a failed, miserable program called a refugee resettlement program. Now you have secondary migration from other states coming to Minnesota, stampeding to come here for not only welfare that you can steal from or take from cradle to grave, but you also have the illegal immigrant population, which is sucking up about $1 billion a year. We already have $65 billion of personal wealth who have left Minnesota, abandoned ship already. They got off the Titanic just in the last 3.5 years. We have businesses that are closing or moving to another state.
A lot of them are moving out of St. Paul now. You know?
They are. So that you have illegal immigrants coming here. The caravan is being embraced by Keith Ellison coming from Central and South America. A lot of these people are criminals. Welcome MS-13.
Well, think about, the cost, but what's happening
I'm not
with
talking about
this
just
is,
money, the cost.
But now, do we think the Muslim community, the Islam community, is themselves going to get along?
They're
You
not
look at
getting along in
Saudi
St. Cloud.
Arabia.
In St.
They're not
Cloud?
getting along in
No.
St. Cloud. Huh?
We have tribal battles
So
going on
the
in
Sunni,
St. Cloud.
Shiite are fighting
Sunni,
up there?
Shia, and whatever. They're all fighting each other. I have a question to ask you. You and I are both
Okay.
Christians, right?
Yes.
I was born and raised Roman Catholic, just like Keith Ellison. Only I kind of, took the instructions seriously. I'm no longer a Roman Catholic, but I'm still a Christian. Not still. That sounds awful. I'm a Missouri Synod Lutheran now. Okay. How many Catholics, Christians, and Jews live in Somalia? The operative word here,
yes.
this is not a trick question. The operative word here is how many are living?
Only if they're in the military.
No.
Not even that anymore.
0.
Yeah.
They don't exist in that
Right.
country, and other countries who share the same culture. And I always,
Right.
I write that way, culture. It's a cult. It's a mistake to get into the discussion about, well, this is a discussion about comparative religions of the
comparative
world,
cultures.
and kumbaya, coexist. It's not. This is a political, totalitarian ideology masquerading as a religion for cover and hiding behind in this country, other countries too, where it's never succeeded anywhere in the last 1,400 plus years, but they're hiding behind our U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights for cover while they engage in endless mischief to destroy our country. Linda Sarsour, Ilhan Omar, Keith Ellison, all of them. Jailani Hussein is a very dangerous man.
Right.
Flat out. Dangerous guy. And he doesn't like me very much because when I look at him, like I did last Friday night, sitting in the front row, I look right through him and he knows it.
And I can tell you a big difference between you and Mr. Hussein. You care about him. You're concerned about him and what he's doing, and he doesn't care one bit about you.
Oh no, I'm just in the way.
Yeah.
I
you're an enemy, and your religion says
That's why he
your
had-
enemy. Your religion says, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you.
This is true. This is exactly
Not theirs.
This is exactly
Theirs
why.
says-
and this is a St. Paul Police Department report that I requested. This is why he had to have me ousted from the St. John the Evangelist Episcopal Church presentation because he wants no witnesses. He needs to get rid of the enemy. He needs to get rid of anyone who can see right through him and
Well,
understand exactly what he is.
he doesn't
A
want
promoter
rational
a promoter of this.
Yeah, saying that he doesn't want people to think, people who can process information. What he's doing is saying by blaming the right wing as being KKK and hating Jews.
And by the way, I
Who
didn't
do Muslims at war with
didn't-
and want to destroy?
exactly.
Jews.
I didn't Photoshop
So
this. This was their invite.
Yeah, he's switching it around.
Oh, of course he is.
Purposely.
Of
He
course he
knows they're just like the KKK.
They're worse. They're worse because if you look at Western Europe.
yes,
I'm not
you're
kidding.
right.
Western Europe is a complete
As far as many Jews they've killed?
No, Western Europe. I'm talking about
Yeah,
Western Europe.
well, I know Western Europe, but I'm just bringing it back into...
The United Kingdom is a disaster because of this embrace of this multiculturalism, anti-assimilation group of people who suck the system dry completely and then scream Islamophobia and create nothing but mayhem and chaos, and then engage, when they don't get their way, engage in barbarism to get their way, by the sword. As opposed to Poland and other countries have said, no thanks. Germany, you do what you want to do. Poland, Hungary, they're doing a good job of saying, forget it.
Right.
No, we're not.
They've stopped it, and they're removing
Yes,
people.
they are. Austria, most recently, in spite of Erdogan from Turkey saying, we will create jihad. You know, who cares? We're going to remain nationalistic and protect our people. The Poles have. This is actually funny because you'll appreciate this one. The Poles have told their people, look, in terms of the labor participation rate, go forth and multiply people because we're not going to import others. Japan has even said, not doing it.
Abortion's out.
We're not doing this to ourselves. Minnesota is committing suicide.
Right.
And the people who have been put in office via this election are embracing it, and they don't seem to care. What's really interesting about this...
Suicide through abortion.
Oh, suicide. Oh, my goodness.
I mean, that's the piece. Of course, in my religious faith, this is why the Muslims are coming in, because we're killing off our offspring, our posterity.
Can you imagine
and
how
therefore, we need these workers, so the corporations are saying,
you talk
the
about
Hormels,
the
we need these workers.
The ultimate irony, the Gosnell approach, you know? They talk about a lunatic.
I forgot to mention that movie.
Oh,
yeah.
The Gosnell approach. Imagine if the, 60 million babies that have been destroyed and all those generations that have... Yeah, that means all these people and the people they would have created are not part of our labor participation force now. Reason? Because they killed them.
Right.
Okay, so now their claim is we need to replace them with the caravan of people coming up from the Central and South American war-torn countries, including the MS-13 people, and the Muslim population that come here and breed like crazy. I mean, just popping up.
And they don't get abortions.
And they marry multiple people, or in the case of, yes, my
brothers.
fave, they may marry their brother and have children with them, or cousins, or whomever. And we have no idea who's doing what to whom and how many kids they're having. In Britain, in the United Kingdom, this group of people, because they're special, can have up to 4 wives, which is, the Islamic thing. Muhammad didn't abide by that. I thought it was like 15 or something, whatever. But you can have up to 4, and you can receive welfare benefits for up to 4 wives who have multiple kids. Are you kidding me? How long can that last? The United Kingdom, as we speak, is almost at the brink of civil war.
It's not lasting. Yeah.
That's why there was a thing called, and this was in all the papers, they called it Crusades. Multiple crusades. They'd finally had enough. And countries like Poland get it.
Poland stopped it. I mean, Poland stopped Islam from taking over Europe.
Absolutely.
And that's the only reason people here in the United States are not speaking Arabic.
And they're
not Muslim, is because it stopped right there.
I'm so proud. I've never been more proud of my heritage on my mother's side, because they were all from Poland, came over here on the boat through Ellis Island. My grandfather through Puerto Rico came here through Ellis Island. My grandmother, born on the Portuguese-Spanish border, through Ellis Island after she went through Nova Scotia, working off a passage, working for a British Army officer as a nanny until she came to the Bronx, New York, through Ellis Island. But they all came here to become Americans. They came here for an opportunity, not a handout, not a demand, and they did not come here to overthrow the country. they came here to be Americans. These folks are not coming here. Jailani Hussein is not here to be an American.
That's
neither is
right.
Linda Sarsour. Neither is Ilhan Omar.
They are not here to be Americans.
No, they're here to destroy the country.
And when they tell you they are here to be Americans, it's baloney. It's part of jihad.
Well, for people that want a movie reference, I'm always, quick to come up with one. They should watch the movie The Sting. It's all about grifting, grifters, con men, con women, con artists. And Jailani Hussein, this character, this guy hates me. He really hates the sight of me. Last Friday night, he saw me sitting in the front row next to friends. And the guy was so totally blown off his game, he did not know what to do because he was putting on this stupid, moronic presentation trying to link up the KKK resurgence and hit me with that label and other people there. We're the KKK, and he's a poor victim again because it's all about Islamophobia.
KKK didn't go after any Islamic person, did they?
Rumor has it.
I don't know the history.
I don't think so. This is an amazing phenomenon, not only in America, but specifically ground zero, the grand central station for this nonsense, for the entire country, which is Minnesota. And I'm telling you that if we don't get our act together quickly, we're done.
Right.
Because they represent, they represent 2%, and I'm talking about the Muslim population, 2% of the population in Minnesota. The election for Attorney General was lost by 100,000 votes, legal or otherwise. My guess is, and they claimed that only 50,000 were registered voters. But then, yeah, I know that
50,000 Somalis?
Somalis were registered
voters.
But there are about 100 to 100, maybe 125. They have no idea how many there are here. Reason? Secondary migration coming from other states because they cut them off at the knees in terms of welfare, and they're coming to Minnesota. This is how I used to testify at the Capitol, if you remember, about welfare reform. Here they come, from Detroit, from Atlanta. I got to tell you, from Arizona, they in the papers, in a Phoenix newspaper, they acknowledged that half their Somali population packed their bags and they came here. So without linking up to or connecting up to the umbilical cord of welfare, either by stealing it or by whatever means, they're here. And they cannot tell how many are actually here at this point. But I can tell you now that Keith Ellison, I love this. Yep. Surrounded by his brethren.
Yeah.
Yep. They're coming here in a stampede fashion for two reasons. One, free stuff. Two, stuff they can steal. And three, because they're going to get complete cover by the top cop in the state of Minnesota, plus the governor. And Klobuchar and the whole, and by the way, and some people on the Republican side who've been pandering to this group for years, like Tom Emmer.
Tom Emmer, and now he finally has a Somali. He can join his Somali caucus.
Well, and there you go. And see, the sad.
So he had the Somali caucus already established before there was a Somali congressperson.
The sadness for Minnesotans is they don't see this coming.
Oh,
they don't get it.
And do you know what else happened that people don't know?
And by the way, let me make an offer to anyone who disagrees with it. This is the offer.
Right.
Come to this table.
Right.
And refute the argument.
Yeah.
Mr. Hussein.
More than welcome.
Be my pal. I'm Mensch.
Anybody else?
To quote, Yiddish thing. Be a man. Come sit here and let's talk about this. I've offered you 4 times an opportunity to come to the microphone and to the table to talk about this. And he won't do it. He can't do it because he can't defend the position. And I'd say the same thing to Tom Emmer. I'd say the same thing to Mr. Waltz. And Keith Ellison knows who I am.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you.
He knows who I am.
Come sit and talk about it. If you have any courage whatsoever, courage of conviction, you can defend your position, you're welcome to do that. On this show, with your permission, and
Yeah.
on our podcast, Third Rail Talk. Come talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yep, because
Yeah.
Minnesotans need to know what's going on. Dave Moore would have said that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this is a problem, and it's not going to go away by itself. And if people do not stand up and wise up.
Well, I'm going to put a contrast in there. Another huge event happened in this election.
Okay.
Huge.
All right.
A Korean was elected to the House of Representatives. A Korean. Background. A woman, a Korean woman. First ever. It's never happened before.
And?
She's a Republican. Was she on The View?
No.
Oh.
Because she didn't go on The View and say the right words, which is Islamophobic, racist, bigot, xenophobic. I mean, the list of, I embrace all those labels because they're so stupid. They're dumb.
Right.
They're childish.
It's projection. They're
half the problem.
U.S. phobia. They're constitutional phobia. They're Bob phobia.
The Bobophobia.
Bobophobia.
Half the problem is that we're dealing, Tim, with adult children. You know, one of my favorite lines from a movie, Denzel Washington, he says, "Tell it to me like I'm a 4-year-old." I agree with that. So, Ricky Ricardo line, explain it to me, Lucy. Look, we're dealing with real live adult children who are all about money, power, control, but where are they going to? I keep asking the same question, 2 questions. One, how many body bags, hospital beds have to be filled in Minnesota, like Justine Damon's father, who was just in an interview recently on Channel 5 News about his 40-year-old daughter who's dead because of a political hire in Minneapolis.
Right, it was a political hire.
The other question is, where are you going to go when you destroy whosoever shall troubleth his own house shall inherit the wind.
Right, and that's exactly what is going
Bingo.
on in Minnesota right now.
And they're destroying the very environment that allows them to exist and to be free. This is about freedom. This is about right versus wrong instead of right versus left.
Islam and the teaching and what Muhammad would teach people to do is not about freedom.
It's about subjugation.
Right.
Here's the ultimate irony. Subjugation primarily of women.
Right.
So what are the females out there, supposedly feminists?
There's this weird connection between Marxism and Islam going on.
The red-green axis.
It's just,
axis.
That's what this is bizarre.
Tell me about it.
So one group is playing, they're combining to get rid of freedom in the hope that in the end, one will win out over the other.
And then
not freedom versus Islam, but get rid of freedom, and then the Marxists will be above the Islamists. But the Islamists are saying, no, we're going to be above the Marxists.
And then they're going to be battling each other.
Right.
So this doesn't end well. It hasn't ended well anywhere it's been tried on the planet. I asked a local radio guy a while back. I said,
about 3 minutes here.
No
2
problem.
minutes.
I can finish this up. I asked him, I said, yo, Walt, Walt, show me where on the planet where this has worked out well. Better yet, show me where it hasn't worked out badly for any group of people, any country that has embraced this multicultural mass migration nonsense with people who not only refuse to assimilate, but will never assimilate for the last 14 and a half years. Show me. You got the whole globe to choose from. Well, and I called it a social justice experiment. He said, I don't believe in social justice. I said, focus, Walt. Focus. I asked you a question. Give me an answer. He lost it on air with me, and I was just a call-in guest. It hasn't worked well for anyone. Ergo, the Crusades.
No.
So
No.
what are we going to do? I mean,
Well, that's a good question. So we got a minute to say, where do we go from here? Where do Minnesotans go from here?
well, it's not this. It's not Mr. Emmer, Klobuchar, Ellison, who promoted all this nonsense and will continue to do that. It's got to be people wising up, showing up, suiting up, and doing their job and becoming citizens. I mean, I went to Justine Damon's memorial service at Lake Harriet, Van Shell. That poor woman was shot to death because of stupidity, because of a political hire, because of the mayor of Minneapolis and the police chief saying, oh, like a bunch of clapping seals and lemmings, hiring a guy who had failed the pre-exam psychological exam, the pre-academy exam
exams,
as
right.
a cop in Minneapolis,
Competencies.
and they gave him a gun and a badge, and she's dead.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, she's still dead. We have to avoid that. We have to do something about the problem.
Well, you got to go to your precinct caucus. You got to show up. You got to get good people in there. And you got to expose the problem and let people know, and your neighbors know, what's really happening and what the Islam religion is really about. And people don't know. They're ignorant.
And I would differ with you and say to you that it's not a religion, it's a cult. And
okay,
so
that's true.
It's a political ideology.
We're good. We
Thank
got to
you.
go. All right. Remember, if you don't stand up for other people's liberties, who's going to stand up for yours? And good men don't do nothing. God bless. Have a great week.
The forest sets on fire, and the wind takes the kite as the firefly brings the light.